Good morning, class. Let's get started. Today we're going to dive into the fascinating world of political theory. We'll trace its journey and see how it has grown and changed over time, particularly in the West. We can think of this evolution as moving through three major periods: classical, modern, and contemporary. The evolution of political theory. To understand this journey, let's first look at the big picture. Political theory hasn't always been the same. It's been shaped by the times and the major questions people were asking. In ancient Greece and the medieval period, political theorists were primarily concerned with ethical goals. They were asking, what is the purpose of the state? Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle believed the state's main job was to achieve justice and help people live a good, virtuous life. During the medieval period, influenced by religion, the goal shifted to preparing individuals for a life with God. The state's role was to guide people spiritually. Then came the early modern age, and the focus shifted again. Thinkers became preoccupied with theories of the origin of the state. They wanted to know why and how states came to be. Later, in the mid-20th century, the conversation centered on the institutions of the state and the concept of power. The question became less about what should the state do, and more about how does the state work and who holds the power. Now let's break down this evolution into those three main streams I mentioned earlier: classical, modern, and contemporary political theory. Classical political theory. This is where it all began, with the ancient Greeks, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. This tradition lasted for a very long time, right up until the early 19th century. According to the political theorist Sheldon Wolin, classical political theory had several key characteristics. A search for knowledge and truth. Classical theorists wanted to understand politics in a deep, fundamental way. They weren't just describing things, they were pursuing a philosophical quest to find a rational basis for both belief and action. A focus on the political whole. For the Greeks, the state, the polis, was the most important thing. They saw it as a body politic, a complete interconnected structure. They studied how everything within it worked together: different social classes, the relationship between rulers and the ruled, and shared beliefs like justice and equality. Emphasis on order and harmony. Because they saw the state as a whole, they were very concerned with stability, balance, and harmony. This is why they spent so much time analyzing things like conflict, anarchy, and revolution. They wanted to understand what caused these disruptions so they could prevent them. The use of comparative studies. They were systematic. To understand different political systems, they compared them. This is how they developed classifications like monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. This comparative approach helped them explain the differences and similarities between various forms of government. It was fundamentally ethical and moral. This is a crucial point. Classical political theory was not value-free. It was driven by a moral outlook. Plato didn't just describe a state, he envisioned an ideal state. Aristotle aimed for a state that could achieve the best possible life for its citizens. They were always evaluating and appraising different systems based on their moral worth. While some might dismiss this approach as being too utopian or visionary, it shows the boldness and radicalism of this early thought. Modern political theory. Modern political theory began to emerge in the 15th and 16th centuries. It's a vast and diverse field, encompassing trends like behavioralism, positivism, and Marxism. The key distinction between modern and classical theory is the introduction of science. Where classical theory was philosophical and often idealistic, modern theory aimed to be empirical and scientific. Modern theorists believed the classical tradition was too focused on the past and on abstract subjective ideas. They wanted to build a science of politics that was objective, observable, and measurable. Here are some of the key features of this approach. Facts over values. Modern theorists insisted on separating facts from values. They believed that political science should focus on what is, not on what ought to be. Empirical data is key. They believed in collecting data and using it to test hypotheses. The goal was to find regularities in human behavior that could be expressed as general laws. Objectivity and measurability. Modern political theory sought to be objective, moving away from philosophical interpretations to analytical explanations. They wanted to study politics in a way that was quantitative and measurable. Focus on process, not purpose. Instead of asking about the purpose of the state, like the classical theorists did, they focused on the procedures and processes of politics. How do institutions work? How do people make decisions? Interdisciplinary approach. Modern political science borrowed methods and ideas from other fields, like psychology and sociology, to better understand political behavior. However, modern political theory isn't a monolith. Alongside the liberal, empirical approach, a different stream emerged: Marxist political theory. This is also considered modern because it too claimed to be scientific. The Marxist approach, also called dialectical materialism, provides a systematic framework for understanding social and political change. It focuses on the struggle between opposing forces, like social classes, that drives historical development and leads to a higher stage of society. It's a method for interpreting the past, understanding the present, and even projecting the future. Contemporary political theory. This is the most recent stage, and it's something of a synthesis. Contemporary political theory looks at the world with a different perspective. As political theorist David Hell points out, it has several important characteristics. History and context matter. Contemporary theorists believe it's essential to examine political ideas in their historical context. They look at how key concepts like democracy or justice have changed their meaning over time. Conceptual analysis. It's also about a deeper look at the very words we use. What do we really mean when we say sovereignty or justice? Contemporary theorists try to clarify and systematize these core concepts. A return to moral and political values. This is where it reconnects with the classical tradition. Contemporary political theory is concerned with foundational values and aims to reconstruct the moral basis of our political lives. Dialogue and debate. It's not about finding a single ultimate truth. Instead, contemporary theory sees itself as a way to encourage dialogue and conversation among people, questioning foundational assumptions. Model building. It also borrows from fields like economics, using formal models and game theory to understand political processes. Ultimately, contemporary political theory attempts to do what Robert Nozick and John Rawls tried to do: combine the ethical goals of classical theory with the empirical methods of modern theory. It's a multifaceted discipline that is philosophical, empirical, and historical, all at the same time. In the end, as David Hell summarizes, contemporary political theory is not just one thing. It is philosophical, concerned with concepts and values; empirical, analytic, concerned with understanding and explanation; and strategic, concerned with how we can move from where we are to where we want to be. This journey shows us that political theory is a living, breathing field that constantly adapts to the major questions of its time. It has moved from focusing on the moral purpose of the state to building a science of politics, and now to a sophisticated synthesis of both.